The full IGN Unfiltered interview with Todd Howard was released today, and it was actually pretty good. IGN did make sure to post the most controversial part of the interview in the snippet that they released a few days ago, as the rest of the interview didn't really have that tone. It was wide-ranging, but Howard did comment on Starfield and The Elder Scrolls 6 in the interview. In this video, we will cover some of the highlights about both games and what we can infer from some of the calculated answers Howard provided. Now, for Starfield, Howard provided some new insight which can point us in the general direction of what the game is actually going to be like. First, Todd Howard confirmed that they've been working on Starfield in 3 studios for the last 3.5 years, those being their main Maryland studio, but also in Dallas and Montreal. He made a point to say that a lot of time has been spent fleshing out what he called the game world. He starts talking about Starfield as something that will be the end-all be-all science fiction game that everyone wants to play.
First, that old list of, hey, what games you want to do? It was post-apocalyptic and then epic science fiction. And so we've had a vision of that game. It's a game I've wanted to make for a very, very long time. And we felt post-Fallout 4, we knew during Fallout 4 our next thing was going to be Starfield. And had thought about it for a very long time. So the main thing is that you got to look at it in terms of franchise, not just game. What does that mean? What is the tone? So we always start with tone, and I don't want to spoil it now, but have its own tone as far as there's so much science fiction.
Yeah.
In the same way Fallout has its own tone in post-apocalyptic. Elder Scrolls has found its own tone, but originally didn't. It was very, very generic fantasy. And so I think our aspirations for that game, it's the end-all, be-all science fiction game that everyone's always wanted to play. Well, we could be the ones to pull this off. We have enough talent and experience and technology. We need to write a whole bunch of new technology that we're doing, but we think that we can pull it off.
Asked more about what that means, Howard provides examples of questions that he wants to make sure are answered when fans play the game. This was a very wide-ranging response, but it is incredibly insightful if you look at it under the surface.
That it needs to be as fully fleshed out as to, how far in the future is it? What happened in all those years in between? What is the technology level? What do they eat? Where do they go? What do they know? How do they communicate? What are the races or places or people or creatures or this or that, and why? That's really what I mean, okay. And have it be its own thing as opposed to that's Star Trek or that's Star Wars.
So
somebody looks at it and says, that's Starfield.
Yeah.
You can look at Fallout and say, that's Fallout.
This is the most insight into what we are going to get with Starfield that we have yet received from Bethesda. Several of the things that Howard lists off there can give us an idea about what the game is going to end up being about. The first part of that clip, when he says, quote, how far in the future the game is, he is implying that the game takes place in our universe, probably even with humans as we know them and maybe even on Earth. This immediately grounds the game in a very specific reality, if true. Next, he says, quote, what happened in the time between, meaning ostensibly today in the world we all live in, and the future time period in which Starfield will exist. You can also read even further into, quote, what happened, to mean that something happened and not just the normal passage of time. This could be an event forcing space exploration like in the movie Interstellar, where humans need to find a new home, or he could just simply be referring to the normal passage of time. I tend to think it is the former, because it would certainly make for a better science fiction epic if the story centered around exploration of the universe for a reason other than just to explore. The latter part of Howard's full quote is also enlightening. The mention of races and creatures can be interpreted to mean that there are sentient beings that we will be encountering in Starfield. It may be a central component of the game, actually. This makes sense since he also added, quote, how do they communicate? Meaning, again, the realistic tone of the game will take into account that visiting some alien civilization won't mean that they all very conveniently speak English or a language that originated on Earth. The fact he is also referencing what they eat and where they go just simply reinforces that this will be a great Bethesda single-player experience that takes into account these things that we've become accustomed to in their game worlds. In the next clip I'm going to show you, Howard was also asked about the tone of the game, and while he didn't really answer the question, he reaffirmed the idea that the game will be somewhat realistic and possibly with a more serious tone.
But no, so effectively you have a vision for what the sci-fi game you've always wanted to play, and that's what you're going for here.
Yes, and it's not just that the tone of the world, it's the game flow and the things you can do.
Are you going to tell me about the tone at all?
No.
No.
Well, with the teaser we put out, teases the tone. Yeah.
Again, this is especially exciting because a serious and realistic tone is something I am very much looking forward to. I am even more eager to play Starfield because Todd Howard stated that he is making the epic science fiction game that he wants to play, and I generally feel like I and many other Bethesda Games fans like the same kinds of single-player, open-world games that Todd Howard does, so this is good news, right? Now, he also spoke about the Elder Scrolls 6. He is essentially confirming that we are going to go at least a decade between Elder Scrolls games, which is, at this point, what we have all assumed. Being that Skyrim released in 2011 and we are rapidly approaching 2020, no one believes that we will see the Elder Scrolls 6 in the next 2 years.
The gap in between is obviously going to be long. It already is. And on one hand, I think it's good to miss things. You know what I mean? I think that makes people come to it with really, really fresh eyes. And I think when they eventually see the game and what we have in mind, they'll understand the gap more in terms of technology and what we want it to do. The one thing it does is people are still playing Skyrim. It's still one of the best-selling games. I know people joke about it online, but it's one of the best-selling games on Switch. Anything we put it out on, it becomes a hit game.
Right.
And they love it. They still play it. It's almost infinitely playable. All of the mods and everything like that. So what that does, and we're 8 years post Skyrim.
Yeah.
It lets us know going into Elder Scrolls 6, this is a game we need to design and people will play for a decade at least.
Howard also believes that it is good to miss things, and that he understands fans' love for their specifically single-player experiences. In a somewhat funny moment, he uses his bottle of water as a reason why, because in these games, you can pick that up.
Oh, but
I know.
You know yourself that
I know,
a lot of your fans don't want to play with other people in the Elder Scrolls world. They want to just go off in their own.
Not just that. I think they want a certain type of experience that is very. It's what we've done. Where the world and the things around you can pick up this water bottle. You can do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Things that we love.
The main new information we got about the Elder Scrolls 6 was more of a teaser. He said that when people finally see the Elder Scrolls 6, then they will know why the gap between the games was so large. So that is definitely exciting and encouraging to hear. It really is true, because we will be at a point 2 generations removed from Skyrim, where by the time the Elder Scrolls 6 releases it will look positively ancient, and not just graphically. Even now, there are numerous restrictive elements of Skyrim that don't exist in games made today, so who knows what the norm will be in 2023 or whenever we finally get to play the Elder Scrolls 6. Finally, in a bit of news, Todd Howard said that Skyrim is one of the best-selling games on the Nintendo Switch, so the time spent porting the game and releasing it on Nintendo's hybrid console seems to have really paid off. In the end, I think that this was a pretty interesting interview. I didn't expect to really get any news out of it, but the few details Todd Howard gave about Starfield made the entire interview worth watching. It is nearly an hour and a half long, so if you got the time I would definitely sit down and watch it. If not, I hope that this much shorter video provided some entertainment value and new information for you. What do you think? Are you more or less excited about Starfield or the Elder Scrolls 6 now? Let's discuss in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Maybe click that bell icon. And as always, thank you so much for watching.